In this episode, we have Tunc Atlihan, who is a Procurement Manager of Sonova, a company in the medical device sector in Switzerland. Tunc, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, finally.
Nice to have you, yeah, because we had a test some weeks ago. It didn't work. So thank you very much for being here again.
Always.
Tunc, to situate you on the map for the guest, I want you to quickly introduce yourself, briefly explain what did you study, and in a short way, your career, please.
So, my name is Tunc Atlihan. I'm coming originally from Turkey. So, from Turkey, Izmir, which is one of the nice coastal towns and one of the most beautiful places in Turkey. I would recommend everyone to go. And in reality, I studied mechanical engineering in Turkey. After that, I moved to Sweden, first of all, for my industrial engineering masters. And then I returned for my army, mandatory army. In Turkey, it's always a problem.
Yeah.
And finally, after that, a few years I worked in, last 10 years in reality, I was in procurement after engineering, but operation side. And around 10 years I worked for Toyota, 2 years in Turkey and 8 years in Belgium. And in the last 2 years, I have moved to Switzerland, where I work as a procurement manager in the medical device company Sonova. And at the same time, these days, I'm also trying to finalize my MBA. And that is, online, MBA program from UK.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. You have quite an international journey, starting in Turkey, I understand, after your studies, and then moving to Europe. So I'm interested in that move. You started working in Toyota and you continued working for them, but in Belgium. How was that move?
So it was an interesting one. So after my studies in Sweden, first I was applying to Toyota in Belgium. But the problem was in that timing, there was not very easy to relocate to there. And at that time, what I thought was, okay, so to move very easily to directly, because there are the barriers like the nationality to Turkish people, there are harder visa restrictions. I would need to approach it through a different route. What I did was I applied to Turkey in the Toyota Turkey, and with the request and with the discussions with the recruitment group, HR group in there, that I want to later on transfer to the Belgium. And at that time, what they given me was that, okay, we have a project in 1 year where we can test you in Turkey, and then you can move to Belgium. And they mostly kept on the time. It may be a few months, but it was quite an interesting journey to move from the Turkey to Belgium.
It is, yeah, because you had so clear in your mind since the beginning that you wanted to go to Belgium, but instead of hitting the wall of, as you said, nationality and visas, you said, okay, actually I can build a bridge, I can build a intermediate step by going to the factory in Turkey where you don't have any issue with the visa, and then after that, going to Belgium inside the same company with a rotation inside the company.
Yeah, in the end, so this is, you can expect, so directly moving from out of Europe, from a different culture to Belgium, of course, the companies are a little bit reluctant on that because they don't know, they will invest money, they will invest resources on you, and they want to ensure that you will be able to not assimilate, but align or adopt to the, let's say, working culture and the aspects of another country. Yes, you can do it in different ways, but for me, this was a smoother way to at least show my enthusiasm, you can say, to move to a new place and made a smooth transition, because too many changes at the same time is always hard. New country and the work would have been, I think it would have been more harder. But first working in that company and then moving to the different country, you all at least have some kind of a transition where you know the company you are moving to. And let's say the country change is a more easier way to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great idea, and it is something I fully recommend to people when they say, okay, I'm looking for a job abroad. The easiest way is, if you work in an international company, ask for a rotation inside that company. And even more if you need a visa, right? Because when the visa is handled by your company, it's like they're rolling out the red carpet for you.
Yeah.
It's a completely different story.
So first of all, so for people out of Europe, the visa process, especially these days, is quite hard. So there are more restrictions on the visa process. There are more quotas on who can proceed. And for these, there is a much harder selection. When you are rotating, the company already knows your performance and they would be more willing to invest all these resources on you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why it's a win-win condition for both sides.
Mm-hmm. And in your case, which type of visa did you get?
I think I need to think. So it was a temporary stay visa. Normally, first you stay with 1 year, I think. If I remember correctly, they will give you a 1 year visa. After that 1 year, or working permit, the working permit extends. Normally, the 1 year becomes a 3 year. And after that, after 3 years, I think it becomes a permanent stay visa. For me, it was a different case because I stayed maybe more than 8 years. And finally, in the end, I became a Belgian citizen when I was there.
Okay, because I think you can become a citizen after 5 years, right?
Yeah, so in Belgium, you have the right to apply in 5 years, but it's not that easy. In reality, it says 5 years, but in the 5 years, they will give you a resident permit. After that, once you get that card, which takes a lot of administration and time, maybe 1 year, then you can apply for the citizenship. Then again, another administration period, which is maybe more than 1 year, and then you become a citizen. But
Okay.
once you become a citizen, it's a right. You are just like another member of that country.
Yeah, you have a Belgian passport, right? You have a Turkish and Belgian passport.
Now, if people ask me, I say I am Belgian Turkish. I always put the Belgian first. So it's because as you got used to living there, so you become more part of that community also.
Yeah, I understand. And you also have the right, being from Turkey, to have both passports at the same time.
Yes.
Because I know some countries, they don't let doing this. For example, the Netherlands, they can only have one passport, or the US, for example.
No, so Netherlands, majority of the European countries let the two passports. US, yes, you said you need
You
to
need
choose
to
one.
give it up. Yeah.
It's sometimes it depends on both the countries. One is the receiving country, do they let it? And in Turkey, this was the case. You can always get a second citizenship. In majority of the European countries, as I said, you can get it also. But for example, some original countries don't let it. India, I think it's also China or Japan. You can never get a dual citizenship and you need to choose one.
Yeah.
But it's, let's say, benefit discussion. I had some friends from India which also gave up on their Indian citizenship to become Belgian. So it depends. For me, if I was supposed to choose, I don't know exactly how I would react at that time.
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah, I have the duel, so let's not go over it.
Cool. And going a bit back in the application process for Toyota, I'm interested to know a bit more about the application process. What did you do to prepare for it, and how did you stand out from the competition?
So for the Toyota one, so it was a perfect match for me. So in the Sweden, when I was taking the industrial engineering courses, Toyota was always explained as one of the best in the, let's say, engineering, industrial engineering. And I had the intention to go there all the time. So when I was applying, I have used what I learned from those courses. And I will also read some of the other Toyota, let's say, especially what is applicable in Toyota, to prepare for the interviews and also for the case studies. The second one was, okay, at the same time, I was trying to make a network, to get to know some people in the company, to be able to discuss with them. And one of the hiring group, I reached to one of the hiring group managers, and I explained about what are my intentions. Also specified about, okay, I want to have an international career. And with those all, let's say, inputs, I was able to perform quite good in the interviews, also in the case studies. So this was a combination of, as I said, preparation for the job and interview, and also networking.
Yeah. And networking is super important before, and I mean, at all times, not only before an interview, also during your job. And I guess it also helped you with the move to Belgium, right? How did that happen? Did you know the department you were going to in Belgium?
So it was the same department, same, let's say, it's just the office difference. So, of course, to make that move, you need to also, once you enter the company, you need to also try to network in the where you will move to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was lucky that we were having some in Turkey at that time, some team or let's say company events. And at that time, I started to network with the people which were coming from the Belgium to Turkey. It will be the same group. There were also suppliers. So I was trying to network with the both groups to get to use them and to understand what could be the possibilities for me or the positions for me that I can move into.
All right. And talking about the differences between working in Turkey and in Belgium, what was the biggest difference for you?
Yeah, so of course, the work mentality or culture is quite different. Even in the same company, there are differences between the countries. For me, for example, Turkey is more, let's say, hierarchical, more direct, but at the same time more direct, which is what you are very clear on what you are expecting. While in, let's say, Belgium, it was less hierarchical, more on influence based.
And for example, for people out of Europe who want to get a job in Belgium, what would be your advice?
The first advice, as I explained, will be to be more adaptable. It's not always a straight way to go and find. So it's not only applying through LinkedIn or other cases. It's more about creating a path, maybe a small transition period to go there. And other one will be in your applications, you need to be able to show your adaptability and flexibility to different conditions, because that is what they will expect. So they will expect your life will change, your culture will change, and when you are discussing, it shouldn't not be only about what you can achieve as a business, but how you can adapt to the people working with them. And in your interview, you should make it very clear to that you can adapt easily to different ways of work.
That's a good one. Yeah. And a lot of times this is overseen. People just focus on hard skills, as you said. But if I am hiring internationally, which means bringing your home from another country, maybe bringing your family, completely changing everything, I need to see adaptability as well. I cannot just hire a machine that knows how to do things. I'm hiring a person that will need to adapt to a different situation. So it's a good point to take into account. Now, hard skills for applying to Toyota. What would you recommend someone?
So it's interesting. I think the main skill that they will, let's say, evaluate you on is your analytical skills. If you are a new or in the middle level, that is the first thing they will check, because you need to be able to analyze data and make analytical decisions. That is the first, and always being fact-based. Other than that, for me, my biggest strength was I already knew about the Toyota production system, about visualizing, about how to solve the problems. And these were the key items from a very specific for Toyota that they were looking at. Because it's the essentials of, for example, that company that, let's say, you need to be able to talk in the same language. And I can say, so from overall majority of in Belgium, what the expectation will be to show some problem solving skills through analytical.
Yeah, I think the Toyota world is extensive, and it's like there's a lot of knowledge that if you can get from the outside, as you said, and you can show during the interview that you speak their language, you already gain a lot of points. But people that are not used to this way of thinking, of this, maybe not Toyota, maybe Japanese way of thinking, it can be like really talking in a different language.
Yeah.
So that's a good skill to have before your interview. And talking about money, if we talk about salary range for your position, for an engineer position, when you arrived in Toyota in Belgium, what is the normal salary range
I
for that?
stayed 8 years. It's a big range. You started with a junior engineer all the way to the senior, let's say, engineer and project leader. So, but the range is extent between, I do not count the last inflation, but something between 50 to 100,000.
50 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a huge range.
Yep.
Indeed. Mm,
In the end, so it is more like in the engineering level. So there could be 10+% increase, higher or lower, but it was the big range because it's a long time. As you get more experience, you become higher in the range.
okay. All right. Thanks for sharing. Then we pass that period of time in Belgium and you decided to move to Switzerland. Switzerland is also known for being very competitive in terms of the job market. A lot of people wanted to get into the market. How were you able to get into it?
To Switzerland, it was even harder. So what I started was like a few months I applied from Belgium. And what I noticed was when you are living in a different country and applying to Switzerland, you are more overlooked because they are expecting more commitment or that you will be willing to move directly before they spend time with you. And after that, what I did was I left my job in Belgium. I moved here and I started to apply from here.
Mm-hmm.
So for maybe 2 months, I applied and then I found the job. And I had many more interviews during that 2 months than the 6 months I was applying from outside of
Just
Switzerland.
because you were here.
Yes. It is important for them to see that, okay, you are not just applying for try the luck, that you are willing to go to there. The second one is, for example, I changed a little bit on my, let's say, expectations also. So when I moved here, what I realized was in Switzerland, there is a very big market of temporary professionals.
Okay.
So majority of the companies are not only hiring permanent, but taking extendable yearly contracts or multi-year contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was when I moved here, I was always saying never temporary contract, only permanent. But then a few headhunters found me and they started to offer me the temporary positions.
Mm-hmm.
When one of them came, and in reality, temporary position is quite beneficial also. You get maybe 5 to 10% higher salary. And in reality, it's a nice way to get into a company to prove yourself. And if you are not happy, it's easier to switch to another one. So for me, the temporary position was quite a good match. Again, I had to build some network and use my network on how to get. But although it was through a headhunter, I tried to reach the people in the company. And through that, I was able to make the first step through the door. And by proving yourself, even in that position, then later I get a permanent position.
Yeah. I think the point that you're mentioning about temporary contracts, it's a really good one that it's also normally overseen. People want security. People want long-term contracts. But if you want to move to a different country, you need to be willing to make that sacrifice, which is really not a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're used to a long-term contract, you think you have everything in life and everything is secure. So I won't give it up for a 6-month contract. But you need to be willing to do that. And to be honest, the majority of this contract always extend. So you can get a 6-month contract, but if you perform well, if you do a good job, probably they will extend. Maybe they won't extend, okay, but at least you got a foot in the country. Now you have experience in that country. You already built some network and you can keep building from that point. The thing is, when people only look for long-term contracts, they reduce the scope a lot. So the first job in a different country, as I see it, should, not always be a bridge, but if it's a bridge, it's completely fine. Not your dream job, not your dream salary, not your dream duration of the contract, whatever. Take it and then you can build from that. It's a good point that you're bringing.
Yep. So it's of course a compromise in the end. So taking that new position is like investing. You need to take some risks
Exactly.
if you want to build. Although I still believe, so even maybe it might not be a dream job, it should be still a job that will passion or will create a passion in you. Otherwise, even if you are just applying for the location, if you do not feel the passion, you will not be so good in the interviews or the applications anyway.
Yeah, it cannot be a shitty job.
So it is more about, okay, so yes, you need to have some concessions on what are the scope or the what you can accept. It's not always the money. If you want to switch the places, it can be different factors. But at the same time, still that the job should create a passion in you to apply for it, to work for it. And for me, for example, Sonova was perfect for that. It was a medical device, a purpose-driven company, and also good culture. And it was matching what I wanted at that time.
Perfect. So for you, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And what advice can you give to someone who wants to move to Switzerland, apart of moving here first, which you just said?
Okay, so maybe the first advice could be what I mentioned is like in Switzerland, it's really challenging market. So there are so many people applying. And as I said, if you do not show passion on your application, there are so many other people that are applying that they will not see you as a good candidate. They will, if they want to invest in you, they want for you to stay for a long time. And in that one, for me, the most challenging ones was in the interview processes. I had a lot of interviews, and what I was feeling was in many of the interviews, I was feeling that I didn't show enough emotion or passion for the companies.
All right.
So for me, I was much a more process-driven person from my past experience, and I was only explaining what I can do.
Yeah. More logical.
Yeah, only the logic part. During that time, I was also taking communication trainings through a coach. And even in those ones, what they were highlighting was, okay, you need to bring more caviar, more emotions in your presentations. And also you can do it for the interviews also. And yes, you need to first research about the company, understand their purpose, be passionate about it. And then you need to be able to communicate in the interviews that passion why you want that. And for Switzerland, this is important because they will be looking at that. So they will be looking at, okay, do you really just want to move for the money, for the, let's say, to find a place, or you really passionate about the role that you will take?
There's a lot of competition here. Like really, they have a lot of people to choose. So you need to be different. You need to bring that spice, that emotion, as you said. Of course, your skills need to be top. Okay. That's the first one. That's to enter the pool of candidates. And then once you are in that pool of candidates, you need to show the differentiator element, right? Which is maybe that passion.
And one other thing was very special for Switzerland. So in Belgium, okay, you can put a reference. You do not need to put a reference. It can be easily overlooked. In Switzerland, it is important. So if you put a reference, they will definitely reach to them. So it's like portion of the culture where this is where they are trying to understand what you have written there. Does it really match who you are? And does the people in your network really will promote you?
Yeah.
And in mine or in other people's, let's say, applications in Switzerland, they always call and check with the references.
Yeah. Trust is something that is built into Swiss society. And everyone trusts each other. And up to some point, when you're a foreigner and you come from the outside, this point is even more important, that you have people that are backing you up because they don't know you. You have never lived in the country. So what are your references? And they better be good and trustworthy.
Also, when you change in here, it's even more common. Huh? Then they will call, if you had a Swiss manager or anything, they will call for sure. So
because they know they can trust each other. So if someone backs you up, That's it. It's done.
Yeah. In Switzerland, it's the culture of that is, as you said, a circle of trust, so that everybody is. It's even in your legal right to get a reference from the company
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah.
So that is why everybody is much more focusing on that.
Good one. Now, again, talking about money, what would you say is a salary range for the position, which is procurement manager, right?
Yeah.
What is the salary range that a procurement manager can expect when they come into Switzerland?
So again, it will be a very big range because not all the companies are like the manager position is not the same in every company.
Depending on the industry.
Yeah.
Right?
It's also industry, as you said. So you have pharma, which is the highest. You have, let's say, maybe other which are in a lower tier. But based on the procurement manager position and based on the years, it will be between 100 to 150.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Then I'm interested in knowing your perception about the quality of life, because coming from Turkey, which is a completely different weather, completely different lifestyle, how do you compare Turkey versus Belgium versus Switzerland in quality of life?
Quality of life is a very interesting subject because there are multiple parameters. If you say weather, and
You need to take into account everything, not only weather, not only money, not only people, quality of life.
So how I would put it is, I think I will put Turkey as the lowest, although from a weather and lifestyle point, let's say like what you can do in your free time, it's the best. But overall, I would put Turkey in the lower. Mid is Belgium, although it has the worst weather. Sometimes you will swear about it, but at the same time, you can travel to anywhere in Europe.
But it has the worst weather for sure.
Yeah. And then I will put the highest of Switzerland, which is a good balance between both of them, but in a higher level from both. But of course, this is linked to at what stage of your life you are in. If you are younger, maybe you wouldn't choose Switzerland because your income would be lower. And there is a high cost of living in here. Or you would be looking for a more bigger city where you would want to go to a, let's say, big city like a few million people like the Turkey in Izmir or in Istanbul. But from a, let's say, overall perspective, from a, let's say, regardless of the age, I would say Switzerland is the best.
Okay. And regarding languages, did you need to learn any language apart of English for getting the job in Belgium or in Switzerland?
Not to get the job. But yeah, language is like a weak point for me. So I have English and Turkish. I try to learn French, Spanish, and German. So I'm still learning German now because in Switzerland it is important to learn German, at least in the German speaking part. And they look into it because in the local market there are lots of jobs which are important. To have German is important because there are many business partnerships and relations with the German companies or Germany. And it was when I first arrived here that I tried to take intensive classes to at least jumpstart my German. And to put even that you are willing to learn German in that one is, let's say, a positive remark in Switzerland.
Yep.
In Belgium, this is not the case because Belgium is like Dutch, German, and French all together. And so much international. It might be dependent on of course the company also, but most of the is really international, and you really do not use the local language that much in the work.
Yeah, in Brussels for sure not. Yeah.
Because I wanted to become a citizen, I wanted to be able to live there easily. That was why I learned French. But reality was I was traveling so much. I was learning. Then a few months traveling, then re-entering to the same class again to remember what I learned. and it was an endless cycle. I learned a little bit to live and also to, let's say, get the citizenship.
Exactly.
But in the end, it is one of my biggest regrets that I was never able to improve it further.
Which level of French do they ask you to get the citizenship?
In reality, they do not ask you. They just want you to be able to communicate in the city.
Okay, so
So
there's
it
no
is
A1,
after
A2,
5.
B1.
So I was A2. I got the A2. But in the city hall, you do not need to declare your what level you are. After 5 years, if you have lived in that, and if you have, let's say, adapted without any major concerns, they will give you the citizenship.
Okay, interesting. I thought they were requiring at least a certain level. I think here in Switzerland, I don't know by heart, but I
Yeah,
think they
so
require some level.
here you need to live 10 years.
Yeah.
You need to have minimum B2 levels, German, and you need to be, what is it, pass the citizenship exam.
Yeah, it's a hard process.
Yeah.
It's not easy here.
In Belgium, they have a program which you can get in 3 years, the citizenship. But for that one, you need the lessons or the level of, let's say, one of the languages. And also you have a short citizenship or adaptation exam. They are not asking you about, what is it, the politics of Belgium, but they are asking if you have adapted to the living there.
All right, interesting. Then now passing to a different part, I want to talk more about the personal part, and the personal part that all internationals or expats develop throughout their journey. I want to ask you, how has living abroad changed yourself?
I think living abroad is really shifts or increases your vision. I couldn't find the right word for that, but what you become is you become more culturally tolerable,
Yeah.
and more start to see the view of other people from the different regions,
Yeah.
different habits, different cultures. So when you only live in one place, even if you have a big network or many friends from different areas in that region, it's still similar people, similar worldviews. But when you start to move around, maybe one place, maybe second one and third, after that you start to view, especially with international friends, in a
Yeah.
much different way. You see from, okay, maybe I do not see this as a right, but from their culture, this is correct. And you start to see from a different view how living can be slightly different.
Yeah. You start having more perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like the things that you were told that are the truth, now you
Mhm.
start thinking about them, like thinking they are different lifestyles, different ways of living life, different rights and wrongs. I think that's a common one for all expats and for all internationals that have lived in countries that are very different to one each other. And if you look back, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, as I said, maybe the language is
Yeah.
one, the biggest one. That was
Learn the local language of the country you live in.
yeah. Second one, for example, it's more about professional. So what I did was, okay, I made friends, but professionally and network point of view, I never extend in the countries that much. So I would have, okay, for sure, I was working in procurement. I would have suppliers that I would have networking, but I never extended that network to regular discussions with people, regular meetups, or from the same professional groups to meet all the time. And that one, wish I was, let's say, more active in creating that kind of a network. That even if I move in internationally, I would have people in the network that I could always reach and discuss professionally all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. They say your network is created when you don't need it, not when you need it. When you need it because you're out of a job, that's not the right time to make your network. It's during your life, during your job. So that's a big one. And it's a reflection that no one has done in the podcast so far. You were the first
Yeah,
person.
and also it's more about, in that, you need to approach these people regularly. If it's a network, you need to be approaching them regularly, not only once in your lifetime. Otherwise, it's just a contact.
Yeah, because also these people normally they tend to keep traveling. They tend to keep moving to other countries. So you never know who you can find in another country in 5 years. Maybe it's that guy that you worked 10 years ago and he remembers you. He has a good feeling of your person. All right. Then I have a final 3 quick questions that also require 3 quick answers. The first
Quick?
one,
No, I don't answer quick.
it's rapid fire question. The first one is your favorite local food. In your case, too, from Belgium and from Switzerland.
Okay, Belgium is very easy. So, waffle.
Waffle, okay.
Yeah, Belgium waffle you can. Okay, I could have sent French fries, but waffles is a better choice. And for sure the beer. So
We take it as food, yeah.
I hated beer in Turkey. I would never drink it. And I went to Belgium and I would be like, this is not beer. This is Belgian beer, which is special.
Yeah.
And if I come to the Switzerland portion, it's raclette.
Oh.
I would eat every 2 weeks raclette in winter. It's amazing.
All right.
It warms you. It gives you all the satisfaction.
Then one book that you recommend. It can be any topic. It doesn't need to be job related.
Okay, so interesting. I really like fiction. And in the last years, okay, so you read the Standard, which is more about how the society is changing, like George, what was it, 1984, George Orwell? Or?
George Orwell, no?
George Orwell, yeah. And in the last maybe year, I read a book called Individupia. Individual, yeah. It is something like that, but now instead of controlling government, it's still a controlling environment, but it's more about, let's say, multinational companies creating control through giving individualism and teaching everybody to the extreme individuality. And it is interesting. It's a small book. It's a fiction, but it was quite good.
I would read it. It sounds super interesting. Yeah. All right.
But I hope I pronounce it correct. Individualpedia.
Like utopia?
Utopia,
Individutopia.
Utopia.
Something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. And the last one is the best advice that you ever received.
I do not have a catchphrase for that one. But what one of my previous managers was always tell me about work. And I realized it a little bit better when I had some health issues in the last years, for example, was, okay, to be able to work effectively, you first need to take care of yourself before the company. And he always said that because, so sometimes we were too much into the work. And he would make let's say, the separation to that you need to take care of health through work-life balance to be able to work better.
Absolutely. You need a healthy body and a healthy mind. None of them can work without the other half. So that's a good tip. Yeah. Sometimes we get so much soaked into work that we forget to do the real stuff, which is eating well and doing sports, having fun. It's a balance.
And shout out to my Polish manager, which was perfect in those years.
Shout out to him. All right. That was it. Thank you very much, Tunc.
Thanks a lot for that, for the time and creating the opportunity.
If you enjoyed this conversation, follow me and share it with someone who wants to move abroad. And if you are on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, please like and rate the show with 5 stars. It helps me a lot more than you think. Thank you very much and see you on the next one.